Phil Tetlock, we have a lot of forecasters here on Wall Street, and as we saw from the September jobs number, some are more super than others. So tell me, what makes for a super forecaster?
In a word, granularity. A great poker player once said he could tell the difference between a world champion player and a talented amateur because the world champion could tell the difference between a 55-45 proposition and a 45-55 proposition. Super forecasters make a major effort to distinguish as many degrees of doubt as the problem permits. They realize that they're playing a game of odds. It's a long-term game, and you don't conclude that someone's a super forecaster based on one hit.
And you started something called the Good Judgment Project with your wife, which created a group of super forecasters that regularly beats the experts. Can you talk about the Good Judgment Project? Because it sounds like a group I want to join.
Well, the Good Judgment Project was sponsored by the U.S. intelligence community, which decided after the disastrous call on WMD in Iraq in 2003 that they needed to take probability estimation more seriously. So they set up a series of forecasting tournaments. We were one of the competitors in those forecasting tournaments. We won those forecasting tournaments, and it's now reported in the book Superforecasting.
And in that group, it's not just Wall Street MBAs or MIT mathematicians. You have a filmmaker, a ballerina, a whole different group of people. So how is it that this motley group, if you will, is able to beat the benchmarks and the experts?
The key thing here is whether you take seriously the proposition that probability estimation of real-world events is a skill that can be cultivated and is worth cultivating. A necessary condition for doing well. It doesn't matter how high your IQ is or how open-minded you are or how much you know. If you don't take seriously the proposition that probability estimation is a skill that can be cultivated and is worth cultivating, you're not going to get better at it. It's practice, practice, practice. Do it. Join a forecasting tournament. Start making probability judgments. Start learning from feedback. One of the common themes running through the super forecasters is that they made a personal commitment to try to get as good as they could possibly get at this skill. They played a pure accuracy game. They played it really well. They won, and they deserve acknowledgement for that.
Now, I mentioned before that we had a September jobs report, which came in at 142,000 for the month. Wall Street had a consensus view of 200,000, so they were way off. So what does this say about the experts on Wall Street? Should they hire your super forecasters and get rid of all these pricey economists that they're paying?
I wouldn't just make that decision based on any one bad call. The only way we can identify super forecasters is on the basis of hundreds of judgments they make over extended periods of time. That's how you sort out the super forecasters from the not so good forecasters. So super forecasters make mistakes too. It's a game of odds.
So what are the limitations of super forecasting? Because a lot of people here on Wall Street want to make money with it, either on stocks or maybe go to Vegas and take some super forecasters.
Well, there aren't any super forecasters at the roulette wheel. I mean, there are some games in which there is so much irreducible uncertainty, there's simply no opportunity for anyone, no matter how smart, to do any better. So you have to pick your battles wisely. Super forecasters focus on problems where analytical effort pays off, and they recognize there are some categories of problems where there's so much irreducible uncertainty, effort's not going to pay off, so they don't invest very much.
What about political polling? We're barraged, bombarded with polls nowadays showing that Trump's in the lead and then Ben Carson moves up and Rubio moves up or down. So how can the team of super forecasters kind of reduce all this craziness out there we're seeing on the stump?
The super forecasters recognize that there's an optimal period of time for making predictions. Nobody in the right mind would try to predict who's going to be the president in 2028. Right? If you tried to predict who'd be the president in 1952, you'd be back in 1940, and it would be an anonymous Army Colonel, Dwight Eisenhower. They don't have a snowball's chance in hell of making that kind of a prediction. So super forecasters only make predictions in the zone where there's not so much irreducible uncertainty, it's impossible. We're still in a zone in the election campaign in which there's a lot of irreducible uncertainty. I suspect most super forecasters would be inclined to do something like the following. They would say, what are the 3 or 4 best sites for assigning probability estimates in past presidential elections? Nate Silver would make the cut and so forth. And they would say, then they would ask themselves, can I do better than that? And if they think they have some special insight, they would tinker with it. If they don't think they have some special insight and it would take too much time to figure it out, they would punt and move on to another problem. Super forecasters know how to allocate their effort. They focus on problems where effort pays off.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming in here and talking about it. Phil Tetlock.
Okay.
And thank you for watching The Street.